Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us. I'm Jessica Woods and I'm joined today by my special guest, Pam Gregory, who has been involved with astrology for over 45 years and runs a very busy astrology practice. She has a popular YouTube channel with updates and interviews, is the author of 2 best-selling books, You Don't Believe in Astrology, Do You? And How to Co-Create Using the Secret Language of the Universe. Pam offers many teaching videos available on her website and writes a fantastic monthly newsletter. Pam is no longer doing client work as she is focused on helping the collective through this huge spiritual transformation. As well as YouTube, you'll find her on Telegram, Unified, MeWe, Facebook with regular astrology updates, and they are amazing. So join me now as I welcome my guest, Pam Gregory. So Pam, I'm so pleased you can join me. You are one of the busiest ladies on the planet right now, I think. And certainly, I've just read your little bio that you sent me, and you are on a mission. Can you, Pam, let me say, you start where you would like to, because I'm sure the title here is Where Are We Now? I know you're going to, for all the people watching, are going to give us some amazing information. Your work is truly outstanding. So, I know we're in for a treat today is what I'm trying to say. So do you want to start with that, or can I ask you just a little teeny bit about you? I know that people will be dying to know a little bit about you, Pam, and how did you get into astrology? Did you know it was your mission? Did you, is it evolved so that you this collective?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, I didn't know at the time. I emigrated to Toronto after university, $100 in my pocket, joined a yoga class the first week, met a chap there who at the end of the first class, several ladies said, that guy over there is an astrologer, big guy from Jamaica. And I went up to him and said, look, I know nothing about this, but I'd love you to do my chart. And the next weekend I spent 7 hours with him, and it just burst my world apart. This whole dimension of meaning, sacred meaning, which I'd been completely unaware of up to that point, emerged in those 7 hours. And from that point on, I've just been gripped. It's just been compulsive all the way through. So that was a long time ago, but it's emerged since that time that this is not the first time I've done this. I'm very well aware of specific lifetimes where I've worked as an astrologer, actually at a much higher level than I'm working at now, to be honest.
Really? I find that hard to believe.
No, it was pretty high, high flying stuff in previous lifetimes, but I know I'm also helping to complete some of the work from those previous lifetimes, and that is emerging more and more strongly and clearly as time goes on. So I feel I'm in service. I'm on a mission. And particularly in these huge times that we're all going through, I think everybody needs guidance. I mean, we're just entering a real fast whitewater rafting period, which I was anticipating way back in January in my video about themes for 2022, and we are now in it. And it's going to move really fast in the next 3 months, particularly. So, just whatever guidance you can give people, because what astrology is brilliant at is giving you the bigger picture, the bigger perspective.
Yes, yeah. And I'm totally hearing what you're saying. And obviously, I work, more intuitively in the sense of that it's not an astrology-based system. But I totally resonate with it because what, you say in your videos, Pam, and I've been watching them recently because they are just so amazing. And you're spot on. And this accelerated thing, I can back that up as well. It is literally, isn't it? It's like running, and if your feet touch the ground, you'll be lucky with the changes that are happening. So can you tell us about some of those changes? Where are we now?
The bigger picture, and I don't have your intuitive gifts, Jessica. I'm working with a language that has rules and grammar and takes many, actually, I think many lifetimes to really become competent in, if I'm honest. So I'd now say I was competent, but it's a long journey. It's kind of like learning French times, many times cubed, as it were, because there's so many layers to it. It's a very vast language. So I don't have your psychic or intuitive gift. So I'm working much more analytically, if you like. And astrology is quite like economics and meteorology in a way, in that you're looking at previous cycles. What happened last time? So therefore, what can we anticipate with an intelligent estimate will happen this time? But there are some very big game changers to that same old repeating cycle, which I can talk about. And I think the really big picture is, I honestly believe that we are in the biggest evolutionary jump for humanity ever that we are entering now. And would you share that, Jessica?
Absolutely, totally. As you say, I think everybody works really differently, and I think, you know, your more, as you say, more logical, analytical side of things is amazing. It's factual, and you prove that time and time with the things that you say. So whereas mine, I guess I pick it up much more intuitively. But and I get a lot from, I call it my divine self. Everybody calls it different things, guides, angels, whatever, but it all equates to the same thing, that we're being guided by our divinity. And I say they because I use it as a term, because there are many aspects of myself that join in on that. As I said, angels, higher self, soul self, and they you know, share information with me about these accelerated times. And then what is wonderful is, as I say, I don't understand astrology. For me, it's been a fascination, and you know, I've sort of dived into it. You know, I've read your book, Pam, and that sort of thing. You know, I've done my best to sort of, but I don't think in that logical way that you do. But so for me, it's much more intuitive. I just pick up, right, okay, there's going to be changes around the financial system, or, you know, there's many things that I'm noticing at the moment, and they literally just like come to me out of nowhere. And what I think this big transformation that I've noticed is that no matter how it comes to us, in what form, we say, okay, that's true. There's something about that, like awakening, that once you know it, you can't unknow it. And I think that's what I see for everybody that's happening for everyone, is that in their own way, however they're picking it up, it will ring true. And that the beauty of us all being very unique and all in this together is there are so many different forms and ways that we can, you know, bring this awareness to ourselves.
Yeah.
Whether it's through guides and angels, whether it's through using the blueprint of astrology, and the many other myriad ways of us being aware of ourselves. So I don't know what you would think about that, Pam.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And you know, so I so respect and admire people who have those psychic and intuitive gifts, because that's, you know, that's not my strong suit, as it were. But nevertheless, we all come to the same conclusions or the same feelings from whatever modality we're working with, and that's what's very validating, actually,
Yes.
as well. So yeah, there is, you know, we're going through quantum leaps in consciousness right now. And that has been long predicted in ancient prophecy, but it's also, frankly, to do with the cosmology, because it's well known and measurable that the sun's magnetic shield, the Earth's magnetic shield, have fallen very significantly over recent times, well over 20%. And that is allowing a lot more coronal mass ejections, M-class, X-class flares, onto our Earth. And so therefore the Earth is going through her upgrade. You can see that in the record peaks in the strength and amplitude of the Schumann resonance. But we are also upgrading too, because we are assimilating all of these solar flares. Essentially, they are bringing in new information from far galaxies, which we are assimilating into ourselves. And at the same time, the Earth is moving through an area of space called the galactic current sheet, which we only do every 12,000 years, give or take 500, which means we're moving through an area called the photon belt. And therefore, we're experiencing these surges of photonic light, which we only get around every 12,000 years, give or take 500. And equally, they are upgrading every cell in our body, and it's down to really our level of consciousness as to how much light we can embody, how much can we hang on to, how much light can we hold in our bodies. And
Yes.
that is upgrading us rapidly. So that's why people are having these physical symptoms of, insomnia, extreme fatigue, tinnitus, dizziness, whatever, because our kind of little energy bodies are having to move so quickly to keep up with what is incredibly positive for us in helping us upgrade our consciousness. But what is really fascinating, and I only have discovered this fairly recently, is in the Russian space program, they discovered that when they sent astronauts out in space beyond the Earth's magnetic field, very quickly, once they dropped out of the Earth's magnetic field, they started to have visions and much greater psychic sensitivity. And so they discovered that magnetism is inversely correlated with consciousness, i.e. the lower the magnetism, which is what we've got right now, the higher the consciousness jumps, or the psychic sensitivity jumps. And it may well be not so much an inverse relationship with magnetism, but a direct correlation with cosmic energy. It may be that. But either way, we are managing to upgrade without leaving the Earth, without having to go on a spaceship, because the magnetic field is much lower. So that's another cosmological reason that we are going in these leaps and bounds, if you like. And what that means, if we look at the laws of physics, when you have much higher frequency energy coming in, the lower frequency energy has to crumble, because two very different levels of frequency cannot exist in the same space. So the low frequency energy has to fall away. And that's what we're seeing.
Yes.
So, big time. I mean, look at the last few days, if you live in the UK, I mean, truth. So, all of that is so expected for reasons I can go on to talk about. So do not go into fear, because at a quantum level, what you're doing is energizing and feeding what you absolutely don't want, and then blaming it for giving you a hard time.
Yes. Yeah.
And we've all done that, including myself, for most of our lifetimes, until we're getting to suss this.
Exactly. And I mean, the way that I kind of, when you were talking, I thought, wow, that's amazing to put it in that perspective, because, it's really way out there. I don't understand it. It's like speaking, German backwards or something. It means nothing to me. But when you were talking about the light photon belt and the light particles, and we certainly are being bombarded by them at the moment, as you say, and this is so lovely that you're clarifying all of this. And see, my interpretation of that in a very brief form is that these light particles are the frequencies that are needed at this time, and remembered, because we're remembering them. We're remembering because we actually are those light particles. We have sent those messages, if you like, to ourselves to coincide at this time. So yeah, I don't know how.
Wonderful way to look, because I think we're remembering ancient magical skills and abilities.
Absolutely. I had that very strongly given to a client yesterday, and I remember it because I've just picked up on the frequency of it, and it was exactly that. It was very much about that.
Fantastic. And it really is, it's reactivating our strands of DNA, our pineal gland, etc. And so, yes, literally, they may well be ancient magical abilities and skills, or we would think now that they're magical or superhuman. Yes. But actually, they're going to become our new normal, telepathy, healing, much greater sensitivity with all forms of life, plants, animals, trees, all of it. We are going to step into a divine sense of oneness and sacred connection that we really have lost in our modern lives, I think, big time, big time.
Oh, so much so. And there's so many people all around the world, who are literally aware of what you've just said on some level, even if it's not fully activated, should we say. And then that means we're going to have some more of these particles and these belts and all this coming at us. So yeah, so the way to handle it, Pam, knowing it's coming. You give so much good advice in your videos. I mean, as I said, I'm astounded by the information that you share. So what's next for us then? What is yeah, such a big topic, and everybody wants to know. I appreciate that, but it's finding the ways, isn't it, with
Yeah.
that to handle each stage, because it is unprecedented, isn't it? It's
It's
not
absolutely, it totally is. And if we're looking at the 3D level, that many systems, in fact, I think all the systems are going to collapse: financial, legal, educational, political, medical, the whole lot. And a lot is going to collapse, even though time is short, even before the end of this year, particularly the financial side, because several things indicate that. Firstly, if we look at the Uranus-Saturn square, which we've got at the moment, which is exact by degree, historically, every time that has happened, there's been severe economic turbulence. For instance, the last time it happened, there was an opposition between Saturn and Uranus, September, October, November 2008. So we all remember what happened then. So,
yes.
But this is the last waning, ending, dying square of that cycle. So the financial turbulence is likely to be more severe than it was in 2008. Then I look at where the eclipses are falling in October and November. That's one of the reasons, as well as the Saturn-Uranus square becoming exact by degree, I thought these were going to be massive months, because the eclipses are happening in the financial axis, Taurus, Scorpio, which is banking, money, wealth, currencies, investment, pensions, stock markets, all of that kind of stuff. And we are already into eclipse energy. We've got a solar eclipse happening on the 25th of October, another one, a total lunar eclipse, super strong, 8th of November. And they are going to be very powerful in revealing anything, particularly in the financial area, that has not been for our highest good, that has lacked integrity, etc. And on top of that, because this is a layering effect, we have Pluto moving through the last few degrees of Capricorn and not stopping until it hits Aquarius. And let me explain that. Whenever Pluto moves through a sign, it intensifies the nature of that sign, but at the same time reveals any corruption. So Pluto has been in Capricorn since 2008, when the financial crisis happened. Capricorn is big business, big money, government, top-down authority, government, corporations, institutions that have power over us. So if anything, they have strengthened since 2008, particularly in the last 2.5 years. The top-down authority has strengthened. But at the same time, particularly now, as Pluto is digging up the dirt in the last few degrees of Capricorn, it is going to excavate and reveal anything that is not for our highest good in any top-down structure. Governments, powerful leaders, big corporations, alphabet agencies that have held power over us, because Pluto is the planet of power. But the good news is, and I could quote lots of historical examples here, the good news is, as it starts to move into Aquarius in March, the power shifts to the people. So we move into a period of time, and it goes back and forwards, back into end of Capricorn, beginning of Aquarius, end of Capricorn, until December 2024, when it fully moves into Aquarius. But it is shifting power politically and socially from the top-down structures, where it's been actually all of our lifetimes, really, not just since 2008, but it's strengthened since then, into grassroots up. Local communities, people's councils, assemblies, stand in the park groups, People's Health Alliance, People's Food and Farming Alliance. And so we don't have to wait until December 2024 to say the old system has collapsed and now we can start to build the new. The news already, all over the place, the news happening.
Yes. Yeah, it is, Pam. It is so exciting. I saw you did an amazing interview with a lovely woman called Catherine McBean recently, and it made my heart fill with joy. Everything that she spoke about in that interview and you discussed, it was the vision that I have always had of this planet. And there have been times when I have, kind of made moves, let's say, to create life skills school and different things throughout the time. And over the years, I had to learn that I wasn't meant to start those things. I was to contribute in whatever way, as we all are here to do. But so very exciting that these systems are collapsing, are going to be changed and turn to the people, which, oh, you know, that's why we're here, aren't we? It has to be why we're here, because as you said, those old systems, they're just old. I called it old paradigm, old era stuff. It is well and truly going, you know, out. But a lot of people, Pam, listening to this will be saying, yeah, but what does that mean if we're, you know, or, you know, that you say grassroots. So what does that mean? You know, when suddenly, I mean, I heard that, I'm already kind of picked up anyway, that at this time, this was going to be the time, October was going to be September, October, that the interest rates were going to start rising, that the banking system was really going to start making a lot of changes, the mortgage system, all of this. This is, as you say, you've rightly highlighted all of that with the points that you've mentioned with astrology. So, but people are going to kind of want to know, how do we deal with that? And as I think you mentioned, these groups, these hubs, these different things that are happening. Is there anything else you can share so that people don't panic, you know, when they can't pay their mortgage, or, you know?
I think the more you can get into a community, the better. A physical community, you know, if there's nowhere locally, get into an online community with people of like mind and connect that way. But if it can be a physical community, I mean, there's stand in the park groups all over the world. You will find a location near you. They're all different depending on the people that make them up, but they are generally incredibly loving, incredibly positive, and focused on, okay, how do we build a new world? Can we buy some land to grow food on? Is it big enough to be the land that we can start to live together on that land? I mean, many people, I get emails every single day from people who've bought land collectively, are growing food and also living on it, you know, little eco houses, log cabins, whatever. I mean, this is a worldwide movement. So things like that, I'd really direct people to that. They've got a website, they've got a Facebook page under the same name, Stand in the Park. Also the People's Health Alliance, if you're any kind of healer, therapist, or just want to volunteer to help organizationally, they are now global. I mean, they have exploded. They only launched in April, you know, and it's kind of absolutely meteoric as of July, when I interviewed Catherine McBean about that. People's Food and Farming, they want volunteers in all kinds of ways for that. So if that lights up your heart and your soul, throw yourself into these ventures, because they're growing very quickly. You will absolutely meet people of like mind. And that's the way you help yourself to start to focus on, what are we creating that is more loving, more compassionate, more equitable, more abundance for all. We're moving into an era which is much less unequal. You know, it won't be rich and very poor. It will be much not completely equal, but much more equitable. And so when you are in those groups, and I'm very lucky to be in a very strong group in the New Forest, it is thrilling to see how fast things are developing, because people have very different gifts and skills and modalities. And every week, you know, people have done something else to push the peanut forward to create a better world. You know, if somebody's sick in the group, you know, there's a chap who had a very bad motorcycle accident a few months ago. Everybody's been sending him healing, and his, you know, when we've sent healing, the healing effect has been remarkable. Somebody else in the group now needs the healing. So, you know, it is so loving. And of course, healing is one of the new medicines moving forwards, you know, because we're going to move out gradually from, well, maybe quite quickly actually, from allopathic medicine into understanding energy and sound and love as a healing frequency, you know, all of that. So you can start to get very excited if you can lock on to New Earth and join a group of any kind of like-minded people that are creating that in whatever way, you know, they're working.
Yes.
That's the advice I have. Yes, I think inflation is going to be high. Yes, the financial system is going to be turbulent. You know, I would humbly suggest, I'm not a financial advisor. I don't know a lot about finance in general. I don't know anything about cryptos, but my sense is that it would be sensible to have some cash at home. And some very, just like I was born in the north of England, and every winter, my parents sort of had stocks for the winter. They made jams or preserves, or got dried food or tinned food to see them through the winter, and they did that planning joyfully.
That wasn't that. Yeah, sorry, Pam. I was just going to say that took me back to things I read about I don't know, was it the Celts or the people even before that? My history is not very good either, but that's what they used to do. They used to, whichever country they lived in, they knew they were going to have a season of some description, and they would, store and prepare these, foods and the essentials that needed to survive the winter or survive that period of time. One of the things you were mentioning there is, these different food things and everything. And I've always been very interested in sharing. It's just been, part of my soul. And when we were in New Zealand, where we were for a short time, what I loved seeing was people would have what they call, I don't know what they call them, like a community table or whatever it was. And like, I can put one up outside my house now, I can build one. And if I've got an apple tree and there's an excess, a bit like we do now, people put boxes out. But what I thought would be a fabulous idea, because a lot of people don't know where these groups are. Maybe they're a bit shy, maybe they're not sure how they're going to fit in. So initially, it's just, how do you fit into your street, your road, talk to the neighbors and say, look, are any of you, really desperate, or do you have an excess of anything, whatever it might be, and sharing it on these street tables. It was so wonderful to be able to take things down that when we lived there in New Zealand, we had excess. And so we can start with little things, can't we? It doesn't have to be terrifying and like, oh my gosh, I don't know what's going to happen, and just sharing whatever we've got.
Beautiful, Jessica, because actually I've got a lovely neighbour, and every week when I get my random organic veggie box, I've always got excess. So I always give them my excess of whatever I've got, lettuce or tomatoes, whatever. And they've got some hens, and they give me their excess eggs. So
wonderful.
we swap every week. So this is very simple, but you're absolutely right. We are going to be much more into local networks. It's grassroots up, much more into local networks, getting to know your neighbors in a bigger way, sharing. It's almost in some ways like going back to the, older people talk about the days in the war when they all shared and helped each other. There's a flavor of that coming back as well. Whereas, I think in our recent past, we've had a kind of territorial materialism of, this is mine and not yours.
Yes.
And that is going to shift. Well, it's shifting already. Big time, big time.
Yes. Yeah. And this whole, COVID thing, because there's so many reasons why it was wrong and it was right. There's always that, the double-edged sword, there's to everything. But it really has accelerated, hasn't it? This sharing and this, caring and kindness and the changes that happen that you're talking about.
So, I think also, Jessica, just the deprivation, if you lived alone, of human contact, just that simple joy of human contact is so precious when we were deprived of it. So there's been a kind of boomerang effect with that.
Yeah, and we know through studies with mice or rats or whatever it is they've done, when they've isolated them, they're the first ones to keel over and be gone. Those that have, they've connected them and kept them together and that sort of thing thrive, regardless of what else they're doing to them. So yeah, I mean, we know these things now, don't we? We know about. I think we always have, but so as you say, somewhere along the line, it's being distorted or disconnected, and we're returning back to that time now. And if nothing else, if people are feeling down or not sure what to do, just focus on that. That just that there's hope, that there's faith, that one of the things, Pam, I'm sure you find this all the time with the work that you do, but the people are so loving and so kind. There's a small percentage that aren't. Don't get me wrong, I have a bad day and I can be horrible to be around. So, we all have our moments, don't we? But generally, as a rule, when we're given the opportunity to flourish, we do.
Yeah, and I think there's much more kindness and compassion coming in. I truly do. Much more care for others. That's the whole zeitgeist of where we're going. And also, you know, if you do have a bad day, for me, it's always nature. I just get into the woods. I just get into the woods because it's what sustained me very much in tough times when I was a child. And that's my go-to place because nature doesn't lie. Nature is so genuine. Nature is so nurturing. I mean, the Japanese call it forest bathing, as you know. So there's something that just grounds me, and it actually changes your physiology. Apparently it's changing your blood. Even if you haven't got bare feet on the earth, it's changing your physiology. So that really helps me decompress, especially because, you know, tsunamis of stuff coming in all the time with emails. So that I've got to do that every day to keep my sanity with the onslaught of stuff that, you know, that's sacred time for me. It's absolutely sacred time, and I will not miss that. Even if the thunder, lightning, gales, you know, I'm not made of icing sugar, I will be out in that because nature is my touchstone. Nature is what always sustains me when nobody else is around and nothing else will.
Yes, I can resonate with that. I mean, between sessions, you know, I allow my time for my session, and then between them, I'm outside grounding my feet. As you say, rain, shine, doesn't matter what, I get out there, and it just recharges and then accelerates that light energy that we're bringing through. And then we can be so much more, as you say, grounded, focused, and able to deal with whatever comes our way in, you know, so much more easily.
And I think the other thing to say, Jessica, as well, I mentioned this in a video I put out on Monday, I think it was, that we are really going to be challenged in terms of what's true, what's not. There are going to be layers of silt and fog and a lot of information, a huge amount of information is going to be coming in at us about all different subject areas. And it's going to be dazzling in terms of, you know, what can I trust, what's true, and just keep turning inwards. I mean, for me, I'm actually, you know, a very simple person in a way because I just keep turning in on the breath, dropping into my heart. And if you get your inner radio dial in a good place, you know, being in gratitude, appreciation, peace, joy, whatever, things tend to work in your reality in a better way than if your energy is scattered and you're bing bong, you know, ping ponging from one narrative to another, when you're giving away your power to any person or narrative that is unsettling you. So come back to self, come back to that center of power, not in a kind of egotistical way, just in a very solid centering way, that you've got your anchor, which is free at home, sitting on the sofa. You can just warmth, like butter melting in the sun. You can just drop into that center. And that will really help. I honestly believe it will bubble wrap you from the worst excesses of whatever's going on there. Yes, you'll see it in the world for sure, because it's going to be very dramatic. But you won't be hit quite as personally and directly if you can keep your frequency in a good place and not get swept away by the, you know, the kind of craziness we're going to see in the drama in the next few weeks.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I love to hear that the way that you do it, Pam, and that you're sharing that. I think everyone will have their own unique way. Some people perhaps will prefer meditation, or I don't know, perhaps listening to music. Maybe it's picking up a paintbrush, isn't it? Maybe it's just, even if you're not an artist, just expressing. But I think it's expressing in some way that connecting with yourself, finding what makes you feel good. And whatever it is, just keep doing it, as I say, just keep doing it. And yes, we can't avoid the reality, as you say, of all these things that are going to be happening so fast and so swift. But one of the things that I'm often told to practice myself, because I forget, like all of us, with the best will in the world, we get caught up in it. But it's just to literally almost stand back and see yourself as well. That's a really nice thing, I think. And I don't mean that because you're intuitive or you're psychic or whatever, but I think it's a therapy technique anyway, isn't it, where you become the observer of yourself, so you can stand back and pause. And sometimes it just really takes that emotional charge out of, you know, being in yourself and then experiencing, you know, whatever it is that you're seeing or happening. it just gives you that little bit of reprieve. And the other thing that is really good, as you say, about frequency, is it helps your frequency to stabilize when there's great reasons to be emotionally expressive, but when it's something within yourself that you're wanting to release or become aware of, but if it's reacting to something, it draws you in, doesn't it? And before you know it, your mind's going crazy, and it's like, it's all too much and I can't cope. And this is where we get the hit of the down. So I just feel sometimes it's good to be able to stand back, imagine that you're there observing yourself, and it takes away that emotional charge, as I call it, and gives you that breathing space. And as you say, I'd highly recommend doing something that you say, going outside at that point, and then taking your body and remembering that those things really aren't important. They're passing, they're changing. It's constantly changing.
Yeah, and I really agree. I often speak about being on your eagle's perch, taking a step back, be on your eagle's perch. And this is a yogic technique as well, being the observer. Just taking a breath and stepping back, and as you say, that takes the charge out of it. There's, you're one step back, you're a breath away, as it were. The other thing that I think can be very helpful is the Hawaiian forgiveness prayer, Ho'oponopono, which is like, sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. It's literally just those 4 lines. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And it doesn't matter what or whom you're directing it to, or directing it to yourself. I had a very upsetting situation recently, really upsetting, because I've got such a massive heart for animals, and there was something really upsetting locally around some animals, and I didn't know what to do with myself, because I thought, I can't stop feeling, I can't stop this big heart. What do I do with all of this emotion and upset? And I thought, the only thing I know how to do here is Ho'oponopono. I went over and over and over. I must have done it hundreds and hundreds of times. And that situation, I almost laughed, actually, because it transformed so rapidly. It was like a kind of cosmic joke. So it turned on its head, and I walked away from that situation that had been resolved. And I said, "Okay, guys, okay, you sorted it out." So that, although it seems such a weird thing to do, I know many people swear by it, and it's really helpful when I can't logic my way out of it. I can't find another solution, particularly where I can't cut my heart off. I can't stop caring. And I didn't know what to do with myself. I was kind of boiling over with concern. And Ho'oponopono really miraculously, it was really quite funny what happened.
I am listening to you and smiling, because when people hear this, they perhaps will have already have seen. I can't even say the word properly. Ho'oponopono. Oh, that was
way too many syllables. You'll find it online, but it's literally, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. Literally, that's it.
It is certainly amazing. I agree with you, and it's so good to hear that you draw on that and use that at those times when, as I said, we all get drawn into it, don't we, Pam? We can't help. Life is life. We're all going to experience all of it. We wouldn't be here if we weren't. It's just how we handle it. And I think it's having these techniques, if you want to call them that, tools, that passing them on, sharing them. Just practice it, try it. If you are like, oh, I don't believe in all of that rubbish, then okay, but give it a go and just
experiment.
Have a go.
And you can direct it, as you know, Jessica, to anything, any the situation where you've got angst and upset. You can use any person, any situation for yourself, whatever. And it doesn't even matter if you don't know which bit of the situation you're directing it to. You're just clearing the whole thing. The other thing, and I'm sure you use this too, is EFT, tapping, emotional freedom technique.
Yes.
That can, and you can learn the demo in 5 minutes online, and that can really shift energy.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because from an astrology point of view, there must have been an explosion of all these different techniques and things. Because I mean, obviously, the age that I'm at, Pam, I've lived through a lot of these. They weren't there, then they were there, and there are so many different techniques, and continuing to be called different names. I think it doesn't matter what they're called, as long as they they've got the right heart, the right energy, and they're effective, and they can be passed on easily to people. And this is wonderful because from an astrology point of view, there must have been, was it 80s where the EFT and all of these different therapies and Bach flower remedies were being produced. And, you know, there are so many things now. We are very blessed with the amount of tools, techniques. I think just all us being here with this, what do we call it? Openness to support, help, and love. It's growing. This movement is massive. So,
and I think a sense of us all being connected. I think a much greater sense of us all being connected. So we're much more likely now than even a few years ago to put ourselves in the other person's shoes and think, yes, you know, by the grace of God go I, and therefore I have to help my neighbor, my friend, whoever. I think there's a much greater sense of compassion coming in like that.
And that's what, I mean, I know we've heard it for years, the age of Aquarius, and there's been differing beliefs about when it's here and when it's not. And I mean, I think at the end of the day, a lot of the you know, the timings are so important for us here now. But how what you're saying, this is all age of Aquarius stuff then, isn't it? It is this collective, it is this sharing and caring.
Yeah, it's that's a very interesting one, Jessica, because ages last 2,160 years. So okay, they have very broad cusps. You know, they don't just end on Monday and Tuesday you start a new age, you know, because they're so enormous in time. They're so vast in time. So some astrologers think we've already entered the age of Aquarius. Others think we won't be there for some time. I don't actually know. So what I stick to is the planets that are in Aquarius. And Jupiter and Saturn entered Aquarius, 0 of Aquarius, in December 2020. And so really it was all through 21 and 22 that we saw these grassroots movements growing, because that was Aquarius energy. Pluto, yes, as I say, starts to move into Aquarius in March next year, fully moves in December 24. And from that time, I'd say much more, we are then into very strong Aquarius energy, because it stays there until 2044. Yeah. For 20 years after that. That's when we are really big time into Aquarius energy.
And also, talking of Aquarius energy, these, just bringing it back up again, these movements, these protests, as they were called, the Stand in the Park and all of these, again, that's the same kind of energy, isn't it? Everybody coming together peacefully, with an open heart, recognizing the old's not working, it's never worked. So, you know, what we were saying before about the financial system, because that's going to be the biggest one for people, because, you know, our framework has been, if we don't have the finances, we're stuffed, you know, we can't eat, we can't do this, we can't do that. So there's a lot of can'ts in that. So at this time of like the unity and the age of Aquarius, that what I'm hearing from you, Pam, is there is so much hope, because we are going to support each other. When those systems go, when that crashes down, it's like there's going to be so many more opportunities in this time. What was your one thing that you would sum up the age of Aquarius from an astrology point of view? You were saying about Aquarius and Saturn, and
how would power to the people. A shift of the power to the people, because if you look back historically, whenever Pluto has moved, and it's got a 248-year orbit, so it doesn't move into Aquarius, you know, well, every 248 years. And when it does that, if you look back historically, there has always been a shift from the top-down authority, whether that was the Catholic Church or the bloated, greedy monarchies when the peasants were starving, you know, whatever the top-down structure was that was all powerful, there was a very rapid shift to the power being with the people. You know, for instance, if you look at France in 1789 with Louis XVI, I mean, that was a golden monarchy. You know, it was greedy, it was obese, it was opulent, and the peasants could barely afford to buy bread. So in July 1789, the peasants stormed the Bastille and basically took down the monarchy. They took down the top-down structure. And just a month after that, in August 1789, for the very first time in France or anywhere in Europe, the Assemblée Nationale brought out the Rights of Man. And this was the very first published document stating legally that men were equal before the law and they had rights of freedom and ownership and various things. And that actually became one of the basic charters of liberty for democracy to be born in Europe at the time. And so that happened really fast, really quickly. You know, monarchy fell, you know, next month. And so again, if you look back historically, when the shift happens to the power of the people, there is often a kind of constitutional or legal recognition of some kind that that power has shifted and people have more rights. So in some form, and this is to do with, you know, common law, natural law, divine law, there is going to be that kind of a shift, particularly as we get into next year and the years following that. And that will be really quite a dramatic shift. So kind of hang on, know that another financial system is already being born. I don't know a lot about that, but a lot of people are talking about it, that it isn't just end of the old with nothing. Another financial system is being born at the same time. And it may be pretty uncomfortable in the transition. And that's where we've got to support each other, but we will get to something that is more equitable and beneficial for people.
That's amazing, Pam. I've always had this, like working with energies and frequencies. It's when you take something away, it's always replaced. It cannot not be. That is every time. It always is. So that's really encouraging and very exciting. Just before we finish, Pam, is there anything that else that you'd like to share? I mean, this has been amazing.
Yeah, I just think focus on creating. Do not, put your spiritual blinkers on. Lots of drama, lots of big news, been 10 tons in England and, last week in the UK, the last couple of days. Just don't get diverted over here. Another big scary thing, another big drama. Just keep locked onto love as your destination. And your love of people, your love of community, your love of the earth, your love of animals. Just lock on to that high vibration and do not be diverted, because that is the fastest way we are going to make this better world happen. If we're diverted, we're leaking energy over here to give life support to what we don't want. In quantum physics terms, just do not deviate. Be very focused in your destination and just keep on focusing until it delivers. And it's already starting to deliver, but will accelerate. We'll see a lot more green shoots of New Earth next year.
I love it, Pam. I just want to say, I have already mentioned that we can find you on Telegram, MeWe. I think there was a couple of other places I've met, Unified, and obviously Facebook. But I'm just going to pop up here that people can also find you at pamgregory.com. And I just want to say thank you from all of us who'll be watching this, for the amazing work that you're doing, for for being here at this time on the earth, should I say, bringing back with you all that expertise and sharing it with us and keeping people, really focused and supported when they need it the most. So bless you. Thank you, Pam, for joining us.
Yeah, it's been delightful, Jessica. And just to say, many people know this, but I'm no longer doing client work because I'm focused 7 days a week on helping the collective through this big transition. That's why I'm here right now. And much as I love to help single clients in those deep sessions, unless I learn not to sleep, there just is it's no more time. So my time is best spent, my work is best spent to as many people as I can help right now.
Yeah, you've got a full-time job and it is helping all of us. So bless you, Pam. Thank you so much. And we really look forward to more updates, YouTube videos, newsletters, and all the other things that you share with us. Thank you so much.
Bless you. Love talking to you again, Jessica. It's been a real joy. Thank you.